Hey, beautiful people. I am so grateful that you've tuned in for a trauma and healing series centered around my book, Me Too, A Therapist's Journey to Heal, Find Liberation, and Joy, which will feature 12 episodes and include the practices that have been paramount to my healing and transformation as a complex childhood trauma survivor who has 8 out of 10 adverse childhood experiences, which are also known as ACEs. It is my hope these episodes will help you fully step into the healing and liberation you seek so you can all rise to the level that you desire in every area of your life. Today's episode will be centered on forgiveness, which played a central role in my trauma recovery and continues to be a powerful vehicle for me to let go in moments when individuals harm me, allowing me to keep my heart completely open in spite of the pain inflicted. In fact, I feel so strongly about forgiveness that I dedicated an entire chapter in my book to help illustrate just how powerful the practice is to help us heal from trauma and suffering experienced as a result of grief. As Lou B. Smeedy said, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. Research shows that one of the protective factors in the formation of psychological resilience is forgiveness. Research also reflects that the more childhood trauma one endures, the lower their psychological resilience, but forgiveness has the power to counter this. Additionally, finding support that forgiveness can potentially disrupt the intergenerational transmission of ACEs. Parents who have experienced ACEs but exhibit high levels of self-forgiveness and forgiveness towards others demonstrate a decreased transmission of ACEs to their children. In fact, up to zero correlation has been found. According to a recent 2023 research study, adults with childhood trauma who were able to engage in forgiveness reported experiencing more freedom in their lives, while those who were not able to engage in forgiveness reported feeling stuck or restricted in their ability to heal and move beyond their experiences. Also, forgiveness has been found to support grief survivors to reconstruct meaning from their loss, appreciate life, feel peace, continue to bond after the loss, and experience personal growth. And lastly, forgiveness doesn't land the same across genders. In men, forgiveness of others had a higher correlation with resilience than self-forgiveness, whereas in women, self-forgiveness had a higher correlation with resilience than forgiveness of others. We're going to explore these data points and so much more during my amazing interview that I've got on the lineup with UK-born Madeleine Black, who is currently in Glasgow, Scotland. She's going to be with us to share her deep insight about forgiveness and its healing power. Madeleine chose to forgive the 2 men who gang raped her when she was 13 years old. She shares her story because she desires to end the shame, stigma, and silence surrounding sexual violence, enabling others to find their voice, whatever their story may be. When she first shared her story publicly in September 2014 on the Forgiveness Project's website, many women and men reached out to her and explained how reading her story gave them strength, hope, and a different perspective of what's possible in their lives. Although being a victim of a crime left her silent for many years, through the practice of forgiveness and beyond, she found her voice and intends to use it for the many people on the planet who haven't found theirs yet. On top of sharing the gift of her story to help the world heal, in March of 2018, Madeleine won the Amazing Strength Award at the #1 magazine Amazing Women Awards. And in October of that same year, she was asked to be the patron for Say Women, a Scottish organization which offers safe accommodation and support to young women who are survivors of sexual abuse and rape and who are also homeless. Madeleine is one of 50 thrivers taking part in research by the Global Resilience Project to develop a resilience blueprint for others. She's also a TEDx speaker, a storyteller for the Forgiveness Project, and has recently become involved with their program, Restore, which has opened the door for her to share her story in prisons. Madeleine, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, you are so welcome. It's so lovely to be here with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah. So we have so many things to explore. And one of the first things I want to start with is the major reason, on top of course, your specialty in talking about forgiveness and using it as a vehicle to help people heal, is that your story is similar to mine as a survivor of gang rape. For many, something like this seems completely unforgivable, and yet you found a way to forgive your attackers. How did you reach that point, and what happened for you as a result?
Yeah, I never intended to forgive them. I call myself an accidental forgiver, and it just kind of happened along the way, along my path of healing. So my eldest daughter turned 13, the same age that I was, and I was studying psychotherapy. I was doing a lot of personal development, and Anna was 13, and my memories returned, and I had to go back to therapy. And it was near to the end of these 3 years that my therapist just one day said to me, maybe they weren't born rapists, these two men. And I was like, how could he say something so ridiculous? Of course they were. They were animals, they were less than. Because I was filled with so much hate and revenge and bitterness, and I plotted fantasies against them. I wanted somebody to do the same to them. But he just kind of got me thinking. And I thought, I've met a lot of babies, and I don't think they are coming to this world evil. I think we all come in the same way. And I just wondered, it sent me on this journey of inquiry. How did it go so wrong for them? What had they seen or heard or experienced? And somehow, I don't know where it came from, many years of therapy, I think I just started to feel a bit of compassion in my heart towards them, because I thought, I've done a really good job of living my life. I refused to be identified by what had happened. I was determined to clean up my trauma, but they have to live with what they did to someone else. And I just thought, that can't be easy. That must be so much harder to live with harming people than actually being the victim, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And somehow the idea of forgiveness came to me. I guess forgiveness is a strange word. For me, it means acceptance, because I went through about 3 years of denial when all the memories returned. I didn't want to believe it was that bad. Somehow, because of the shame, I thought it was a reflection on me, all the things that I was being shown. If I verbalized those, then people would look at me differently. They would be disgusted, because it left me with feelings of inadequacy and worthlessness for years. But I also realized during that therapy that I'm not what they did to me. I'm not my body. I'm not the events in my life. That's just happened to me. The real essence of me, you can never be touched by what's done to us. It's just buried underneath all that trauma. And our job is to try and find her again or him again. So yeah, the forgiveness was about acceptance that I can't change the past, and actually the denial was driving me crazy. I could do more damage than the pictures themselves in my mind. So it was a way of letting go, of coming to terms. And it's just, it was just a lot more peaceful sitting on this side of the anger and the revenge and the hate than being consumed with that 24/7.
Yeah, there's so much that I want to reflect back in what you shared, right? I mean, just the fact that you had this tremendous trigger at the same age of your daughter, right? Because we never really know when a trigger is going to present itself. And we can have lost memories of something because our denial is so deep, or our memory simply can't access it, because that's one of the ways, as we know, that trauma affects us. And you hear about people much later in their life, in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, and all of a sudden having this experience that then takes them back. And so it was a really beautiful moment for you to say, okay, this suffering that I'm now causing myself as a result of sitting in the anger, which is rightfully so, right? There's a lot to be angry about when people violate us, but this recognition that you knew that you didn't want to sit in that anymore, and you knew there was another way, and that allowed your heart to be softened to see the humanity in a monstrous act towards you that really gave you freedom, and now this pathway by which that has opened the door for so many others to begin their healing journey.
Absolutely. I learned not to take it personal. I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. It could have been anybody. It wasn't special to me, it was just I happened to be there that night, and that's who they stumbled across. So learning not to take it personal, even though it was a very personal crime against my body, which sounds a bit kind of a paradox. But yeah, I learned that it wasn't about me, it was about them. And also, I guess I had to learn to forgive myself. I was just a naive 13-year-old girl who lied to her parents, who got drunk, who stayed in an empty flat. That's all I did. It wasn't anything that I did that caused it. It was came down to the fact that these two men chose to rape me, nothing else. It wasn't because I'd been drinking. Wasn't what I was wearing. It wasn't because of the lies that we told. It was their choice. So once I saw that as well, because I carried all that inappropriate shame and guilt and fear for years and years. And it was like, oh, all those years I weighed myself down, dragging these bags of baggage behind me. And yeah, it's a lot lighter now, much lighter.
Yeah. Well, and I write about this in my book. It's called The Victim of Self-Blame, right? And so oftentimes survivors, particularly those who have experienced sexual assault and domestic violence, we do carry so much shame. And we believe that in some way, as outlandish as it may sound, that we are responsible. If only we wouldn't have gone there, if only we wouldn't have worn this, if only we would have not been so secretive, if only we wouldn't have just been a normal teenager making choices that normal teenagers do. And this idea that nothing that anyone does is really about us. The Four Agreements teaches us don't take anything personal. And that depersonalization really allows us to enter into a pathway of liberation. And I love that you keep referring to, what you felt and this lightness, right, that came about as you were able to really, really detach from what happened. And not, of course, giving your attackers a pass, right? Because we have to be accountable for the harm that we do to other people, but we deserve the gift that comes along with forgiveness. And so thank you for illustrating that so succinctly.
You're
So,
welcome.
yeah. So the next thing that I want to explore with you is many trauma advocates take the position that forgiveness isn't necessary to move on from trauma. Yet the research consistently counters that. What's your take on why forgiveness is so important to center in order for survivors to truly rise on a mind, body, spirit level? And I recognize that you have spoken to that already through our first exploration, but I imagine that there's some other things that you want to be able to add to that.
Sure. So I am also a psychotherapist as well, but I am not a forgiveness preacher. I will never tell anyone the only way to heal yourself is to forgive, because it's a very personal journey at the end of the day. It was my choice. My key to freedom, it let me go completely. It set me free. And when my book came out, I had a few clients that had read it. I tried to keep my work and my public life separate, but it's not always that easy. And they said, I want to be like you, I want to forgive, I want to get to that place. I went, whoa, that's what I did. This is down to you and your choice. We need to work through your trauma first. And if that arises, then that's great. But that's not my aim of therapy with you, to make sure that you forgive. Otherwise, you'll never be okay. Just because the research shows it's really good, you can't force someone to get to a place of forgiveness. It just completely side-blinded me. It took me so much by surprise, because I was determined to hate them for years. Really, I was just so bitter and sarcastic. I was horrible. I really was. And it really shocked me. Yes, when it came to me, it made complete sense. But until you have that moment, you can't drag the horse to water and make it drink. You can read all the information and understand the theory, but it's very much for me, it was very much a felt sense. It just made sense to my body, and the timing has to be right. I don't know if it's so easy just to suggest to someone, the research shows forgiveness will set you free and it's much healthier, blah, blah, blah. But if you can't get there, you need to work what's blocking you. You need to find the stepping stones in order to get to that path of forgiveness, if that's what you want to do. But I do believe you can heal without forgiveness. It's just about letting go, acceptance, grounding yourself. but forgiveness helped me to do all those things. So I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but it's a very personal journey, really is.
Yeah. And quite honestly, I didn't hear the contradiction. What I heard was that you emphasize choice, and that,
Yes.
there's a saying that people don't resist change, they resist being changed. And
Yes.
the more that we push up against someone with whatever agenda that we have based on who we think they could become as a result of the pathway to forgiveness, it isn't necessarily going to equate to them choosing. And that's the power of
Yeah.
choice. The minute that we decide is the minute that we can begin, whether that's forgiveness or any other pathway by which that is available to us in order to heal. And the reality is that in many ways, as much as, sitting in unforgiveness harmed you, it sounds like it also propelled you forward, right? And so I think that when we think about the stages of life and the stages that we may be embarking on in terms of our healing, I think certain emotions can fuel us until they don't, right? And there was a reckoning, it sounded like, for you in saying, gosh, I don't want to sit with this anymore. And it's okay if people are sitting in it, and it's okay however long it takes people. And it's also okay if people choose never to forgive, right? And so I think, as we both know as therapists, educating people and giving them a pathway by which to enter, that's our job. Their job is to make the choice, right? And for us to be along for the ride
Yes, we could
on their
only
choice.
facilitate.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. What did you say?
Yeah, we could only facilitate the
That's
journey.
it. That's
I'm
it.
sorry to interrupt you. I said we could only really facilitate their journey and
Mm.
be alongside them, but they're driving the car at the end of the day. We're
Yes,
not driving
yes.
the car.
This
But
is
yeah.
so true. This is so true. So at the beginning of the episode, speaking of, the implications of forgiveness and how good it can be, we know that it has the power to reduce the chances of harming the next generation, even down to that zero correlation that I talked about. But unfortunately, many individuals who become parents don't realize that they too have healing to do, which ends up harming their children, not because they set out to do that, but because whatever we don't heal, we typically do harm, right? And so, how can individuals see the importance of healing before they become parents? And if they have become a parent, what can they do to begin to reverse maybe some of the damage that's already occurred through the parenting process?
Well, I would say actually becoming a mother was the start of my healing journey, because when I met my husband Stephen about 41 years ago, I'm quite old,
Wow.
I told him when we were going to get married that I was never going to become a mum, because I really thought in my head the process of giving birth, being around men, being out of control, all my fears and phobias, I just thought it was too much. The idea just terrified me, going into labor and having a man at my cervix and all the rest of it. I just thought, I just won't become a mum. It's going to be so much easier. I'll just avoid, which is what I did with everything. All my fears and phobias, I just avoided them, which obviously doesn't work them. It just makes them bigger. But then I decided, which I call my best revenge, if I don't become a mum, they've won. I'm handing all my power and control to these two men, and they don't even have any idea that I'm doing that. So that's when I decided that I need to become a mum. And then I thought, when I saw my fears and my phobias and my paranoid feelings, my anxiety, I thought I've got to show my children that you can overcome, because what would be the point of bringing them into this world if I'm still filled with fear? So I had to face my fears head on. I don't do anything, half-heartedly. I went full facing my fears, just in order, because of my children. I thought I could damage them. I could, project or transfer all of my fears and phobias, anxieties onto them. And then what would be the point of bringing these three gorgeous girls? I can say that because I am their mum. What would be the point of bringing these gorgeous girls into this world if I corrupt their minds or I condition them in some way? So I allowed them to do whatever it was that I was terrified of allowing them to do. My eldest one was out with a fake ID at 15, going to bars, going into clubs. She's now nearly 31, pregnant, very sensible. She's really, really good. They're all very sensible. But I wanted to, one part, wrap them up in cotton wool and never let them out. But the other part of me knew if I don't make them streetwise, if I don't make them aware of what goes on out there, they won't be able to look after themselves either. So it's finding that balance. And for me, it's always been about communication, being honest, talking about the difficult things, having the courageous conversations where most people would like, oh, I can't talk to them about that. So they've always known from a very young age that I used to just say 2 boys hurt me very badly. And then as they got older and it became more age appropriate, I would share with them what took place. So they were very, very aware. So I think now they can see by how I live my life, which was the same with me and my parents, that we can get past anything that happens to us and we can have a fabulous life. Because, we're hardly here on this planet. If we look at Earth and all the billions of years of existence, I'm here for about 10 nanoseconds, and I'm going to make sure I have good 10 nanoseconds on this life, and they all live their life to the fullest. So I think even if we don't share verbally with our children how we live our life, they learn by our example. And so because I'm determined to have the best time, we all have a great time. So it transfers down to them. Whatever you send to them, it will transfer down to them.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much intention in what you just said, right? You set out to be a great parent and to not allow the residuals of the trauma that you experienced to be in the driver's seat of your life. Now, I recognize that forgiveness came later than the time that you set that intention, but how beautiful that was that you were willing to be vulnerable, to speak your truths in the way that your children could understand about who you were, about how the world was, about why you maybe did some of the things that you did. And I imagine that built very beautiful bridges with all of them. And one last thing that I want to say is that it's so powerful what you shared regarding this recognition that you were afraid to be a mother. There's so many people out there, and I imagine folks that are going to be listening to this episode who share those same fears, right? It's like the world is a very scary place. I've been harmed. Why would I want to bring children into a world that has the potential to harm them? And yet, I think anytime that we have an unexamined life, anytime we're having limiting beliefs in association with our life, I think that we should get curious. There's an opportunity to get curious about those things, because anything that we desire to do in life, we can have it, and as long as we do the work of intention and healing and whatever other practices like forgiveness we need to engage in so that we can rise to the level of our desires. That was really, really beautiful. So the next
100%. Wherever we put our attention is where our attention goes. Whatever we focus on, that's what we get back as well.
Yes, yeah, beautiful universal law, right? And no matter who we are, universal law works for all of us. So, considering that self-forgiveness and forgiving others can live literally in 2 separate worlds sometimes, yet are equally important to overall well-being, what strategies can we use to keep both at the forefront of our lives?
Good question. I don't know if I know really. I guess it's always working. Sometimes I can forgive the huge big things like this, and sometimes my husband's left the toilet seat up again or the lid off the toothpaste, and then I'm mad and I think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is crazy. I can forgive that, and I get really annoyed with this. So you're always constantly working different layers of forgiveness, in the grand scheme of things. It's not such a big deal to put the seat down myself or to put the lid back on the toothpaste, but it's where we get caught in the day-to-day stuff. So I think we're always working, we're like a piece of charcoal that we just polish and polish and polish till we become that diamond. That's how I kind of look at it. We're always expanding, we're always working. It's having that awareness of where we get caught. Oh, there I am going crazy about this, that, and the other. Well, just let it go. In the big scheme of things, I really want to have joy in my life and experience really a good life and to be as grounded and as connected as possible. Doesn't matter if you didn't put the bins out or my child left a dirty cup in the sink, whatever. These just don't worry about the little things, it is the little things really at the end of the day are the big things. To me, my family is so important because I very nearly didn't have them. I very nearly didn't exist on this planet because they nearly killed me. And I think that's made me want to live my life as best as I can. So even though I'm a therapist and I've done a shitload of therapy, I still get caught. Everybody gets caught. The good
Yeah.
thing is now, if I do get triggered, which actually surprisingly has happened recently a couple of times, and that was like, I thought I was healed. I thought I'd done so much work, but now I can recognize, oh, that trigger, and I can ground myself as quickly as possible and realize, as you said, it was just a residue, a little bit of trauma burp that was caught in my body, and I can just stay with my breath, tune in, ground myself to the planet as much as I can, and just sit with it and just allow it to be, rather than fighting anything that comes back up. Just, okay, there's just a bit of trauma left in there. Thank you for showing me the areas that I have to work. That's okay. It's not going to overwhelm and kill me anymore. I'm going to be fine with it. And then actually I can dissipate whatever the residue so much quicker. I mean, I can dissipate it in minutes before it take me months. It's changed so dramatically when your awareness grows and you're just really aware of your body and your thoughts. I think to me that is my biggest practice, just to stay as grounded and connected in as possible.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you have acknowledged that forgiveness has given the gift of time back, right? Like we can choose this or we can choose peace. That's one of the principles in the Course in Miracles.
And I
Um,
deserved peace at the end of the day.
Yes, and we all deserve peace at the end of the day, right? I can choose to be right or I can choose to be in relationship, right? Whatever it is that we focus on is what is going to grow. And I love this power play that we are illuminating, in that it gives us the gift of the present. It gives us the gift of letting go. It gives us the gift of time so that we're not wasting it, because for all of us, we don't know, right? Tomorrow isn't promised to us. And so how do we want to live, in the words of Mary Oliver, this one precious life that we have, right? And so, and thank you for just talking about just the daily rigor and the challenges that can go along with the forgiving the small stuff and forgiving the big stuff related to the triggers that some of us may have for the rest of our lives. But as we heal, as you acknowledge, those triggers become less and less. And we have then tons of
Yeah.
tools in our toolbox to be able to bounce back, to be resilient in those moments so that we can get back to living, right? And to living as fully as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, resilience is not what knocks us down, it's how we stand back up.
Mm, yes.
We get knocked down many, many times, big stuff, little stuff, but it's how you continue to stand back up that is resilience, and stay
Yeah.
strong. When the wind and the storm is trying to battle you down, can you get back on your surfboard and just surf again? We're always going to get knocked off our surfboard, but the trick is to just keep surfing.
I love that. Keep surfing. So, considering that women experience more benefit from self-forgiveness than men, and I have a theory about why this is, what can we do to practice self-forgiveness on a daily basis? And it ties in a little bit with what we just explored. Um, but is there anything else that you want to add about that inquiry?
Oh, well, I didn't know that fact, that women are easier to forgive than men are easier to forgive for themselves. So that was interesting for me to hear that. I just think, yeah, build your intention. What do you want? Do you want to stay angry? Do you want to let go of it all? Do you want peace? Where do you want to put your attention? If you think you're right, then you're right. If you think you're wrong, then you're also right. It's everything is, where do you put your attention? What do you really want from life? Do you want to just get caught by all the hurts and disappointments for the rest of your life, or do you want to find a way just to release them and let it go so you can live your most courageous life, your most authentic life? And to me, it just seemed no choice. I had to let it all go, because holding on, I'd be bitter till the day I died. And what kind of wife, mother, friend, neighbor, what would I be like then if I just held on to that bitterness? So just
Yeah.
work it, just become aware, just work it and work it, dive into the difficult spaces, all the stuff you avoid. that's where you need to go. You've got to
Yeah.
feel to heal, really. You really need to feel it, not avoid it, not diminish it. Just dive in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and what came to me is just the power of vision, right? What vision do we want for our lives? What vision do we have for our lives? How do we want to be? And it doesn't matter how we've been, but to be able to curate that vision and then to keep it at the forefront and continue to massage it, continue to get back on that surfboard, as you so beautifully offered, is the best gift that we can give ourselves. So there are many individuals, I'm sure, who are listening and saying, guys, I just can't forgive, right? I struggle with forgiveness. I've held on to this thing for 40 years. And both from a trauma standpoint, it could be related to loss, it could be related to broken relationships, right? Broken family ties. So for individuals who struggle with letting go of the major and minor ways that people harm them, what piece of advice do you have for them? And outside of what you've already shared, what steps can they take to begin their forgiveness journey?
Yeah, I guess it's about looking at kind of what we just touched on, and maybe asking yourself, what difference would it make if I chose to forgive? How would my life look differently? Could I let go of something? Would it be lighter? We can forgive someone, but we don't need to remain in contact with that person. I think, people think you have to forgive them. I'm never going to meet the men that raped me. I'm never going to sit down and have lunch with them and be their pals. That is never going to happen. I didn't even need to see them to make that decision. I could make that decision quietly by myself inside my heart. I never want to hear or see them ever again. So you
Yeah.
don't have to sit down and have lunch with a person that's harmed you, but you can choose to forgive them. So I think when I first heard that, that made a huge difference to me. I just thought forgiveness, we'd have to be friends and I'd have to meet them and all this nonsense. But yeah, it's still really important to have boundaries. The people that harm us, and you can still miss them if you cut them out from your life. It's a process of letting go. It's painful. Someone that you think you love, or you think they're your friend, they're your partner, has really let you down. I guess it's about understanding, putting yourself into their shoes, trying to be compassionate to see where they're coming from. Why do they have that attitude? Are they a happy person, or, are they just desperate as well? It doesn't mean you have to excuse the behavior, because I'll never, ever forgive the act of rape, because as we know, it's a total violation on not just our body, our mind, our psyche, and it impacts, or it can impact on us for years, decades. But I can forgive the two men for just being human. I can forgive humanity. So I just think we are a very immature species living on a planet, and we still have so much to learn. And when I really take that into my heart, that helps. We're all just on this journey called life, and we're all just walking ourselves back home, trying to be as grounded and settled as possible. And if we can have some compassion, just some understanding without excusing their behavior, I think that, to me, that really helped me. Really did.
Such a beautiful way for us to gently begin to tread the line of forgiveness. I am so, so grateful for you, for speaking your truth in association with your journey with forgiveness. And I would love for you to share with the audience how they can stay in touch with you and connect with you in all the ways.
Sure. Well, they'll find me on social media if they just search for Madeleine Black, or if you go to my website, it's madelineblack.co.uk. So you'll
Beautiful.
find me somewhere. Yeah.
Beautiful. So I want to thank you, audience, for tuning in today. I can only hope that the words imparted by myself and Madeleine have helped to create a greater pathway towards your healing, liberation, and overall abundance. If either one of us can help you on your journey, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you haven't purchased Me Too, A Therapist's Journey to Heal, Find Liberation and Joy, I invite you to do so. You can get your copy, including ebook version, through Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, and Ingram Spark. To learn more, visit www.demarrawest.com. We'll leave you with the words of Desmond Tutu. Forgiveness says you are given another chance to make a new beginning. Until next time, beautiful people. Ashe.